Marcus stood outside the same school hallway he used to get suspended from twice a semester, holding a manila folder that could finally clear an innocent man's name after 31 years. He was 41 now, a successful civil rights attorney with his name on the door of his own firm, but standing in this particular hallway made him feel exactly 14 again, angry and unseen, the kind of kid every teacher quietly gave up on by October. Every teacher except one. The school janitor. Marcus pushed open the door to the maintenance office, and there, exactly where he somehow knew he would still be, sat Samuel Reeves, 73 years old now, sweeping the same floors he'd been sweeping for over 3 decades. "Mr. Sam," Marcus said, his voice catching. Samuel looked up, confusion shifting slowly into recognition, then into something that looked almost like disbelief. "Marcus Webb." Marcus held up the folder, hands trembling. "I found it. I finally found the proof. Everything they said about you back then, it was a lie and I can prove it." Samuel set down his broom slowly, sitting down hard on a nearby stool. 31 years of quiet, buried injustice suddenly rushing back to the surface of his face all at once. "After all this time," Samuel said quietly, "you actually went looking." What Marcus was about to reveal would finally restore something Samuel had lost decades earlier, something far more valuable than the job he'd been forced to give up. Welcome to Digital Story Corner. Sit back, relax, and let's begin. Samuel Reeves had been one of the most respected teachers at Jefferson Middle School for nearly 15 years. Known throughout the district for his unusual ability to reach the students everyone else had already written off. He specialized unofficially in exactly the kind of kid Marcus had been at 14, a smart, angry boy bouncing between foster placements, failing every class on purpose because failing on purpose hurt less than trying and losing anyway. Samuel never gave up on him, staying late every single afternoon that first difficult year to help Marcus catch up on assignments he'd deliberately ignored, never once treating him like a lost cause the way most of the staff quietly had. He was the only adult who showed up to Marcus's foster care review hearing that year, sitting quietly in the back of the room simply so Marcus would have at least one familiar face present. Then, halfway through Marcus's 8th grade year, everything about Samuel's life fell apart overnight. Another teacher accused him of falsifying grades to protect a student from academic probation, a serious ethics violation that, if true, would have justified immediate termination. Samuel denied it completely, insisting the accusation was fabricated, but the district, eager to avoid a larger scandal, quietly pressured him into resigning rather than fighting the allegation through a lengthy formal investigation that might attract unwanted public attention. Samuel lost his teaching license in the process, unable to secure the necessary funds or legal support to properly contest the ruling, and effectively became unemployable in education anywhere in the state. Rather than leaving the school entirely, he took the only position the sympathetic but limited principal was able to quietly offer him, working as the school's janitor, a job that paid a fraction of his previous salary, but at least allowed him to remain close to the students he still cared about deeply. Marcus remembered being 12 years old that year, confused and furious watching the one adult who had ever truly believed in him get quietly destroyed by an accusation nobody bothered to properly investigate. He remembered Samuel simply nodding, resigned, when Marcus asked him directly whether the accusation was true. "It doesn't matter what actually happened," Samuel told him at the time. "It only matters what people decide to believe." That single sentence stayed with Marcus for the rest of his life, quietly shaping the career path he eventually chose. He went on to finish high school, driven largely by a fierce determination to prove Samuel's faith in him hadn't been misplaced, eventually earning a scholarship to college and later attending law school specifically focused on wrongful accusations and civil rights litigation. Throughout his career, Marcus never forgot about Samuel, though the demands of building his own practice kept him from properly investigating what had actually happened all those years earlier. It was only recently, while working an unrelated wrongful termination case involving the same school district, that Marcus stumbled across old personnel records that reignited his curiosity about Samuel's case specifically. Digging deeper through archived district records, initially just out of personal curiosity during his off hours, Marcus discovered something that completely reframed everything he thought he understood about what had happened to Samuel 3 decades earlier. The teacher who had originally accused Samuel of falsifying grades, a man named Gerald Finch who had since retired and passed away nearly 5 years earlier, had left behind a signed affidavit filed quietly with a completely unrelated legal matter involving his own pension dispute with the district. In that affidavit, seeking sympathy for his own separate grievance, Finch had inadvertently admitted that he had fabricated the original accusation against Samuel out of professional jealousy, resentful that Samuel consistently received better performance reviews and more community recognition despite having less formal teaching experience at the time. Marcus sat in his office reading that affidavit late into the night, stunned by the casual, almost incidental way a man's entire career and reputation had been destroyed by petty professional jealousy that nobody had ever bothered to properly investigate at the time. He spent the following 3 months building an airtight legal case, working entirely on his own time and his own dime, determined to finally clear Samuel's name through the state's teacher licensing board. He gathered supporting testimony from former colleagues, tracked down original grading records that had been improperly reviewed during the initial rushed investigation, and submitted a formal petition demanding Samuel's teaching license and full professional reputation be completely restored. Now, standing in that maintenance office holding the folder containing 31 years of buried truth, Marcus finally got to deliver news he had been waiting his entire adult life to give this man. Samuel read through the documents slowly, his hands shaking, tears eventually falling freely as he reached Finch's own signed admission near the final pages. He sat in silence for a long moment afterward, absorbing 3 decades of quiet, unspoken shame finally lifting from his shoulders all at once. "I always told myself it didn't matter," Samuel finally said, voice thick with emotion. "That doing right by you kids was enough, whether or not anyone ever knew the truth. But some part of me has been carrying this for 31 years anyway." The state licensing board formally reinstated Samuel's teaching credentials 4 months later, along with a rare public statement acknowledging the original investigation's serious procedural failures. The school district, facing significant public pressure once local news outlets picked up Marcus's meticulously documented case, issued a formal apology and offered Samuel a substantial settlement alongside the immediate option to return to full-time teaching if he wished. Samuel, now 73 years old, ultimately declined the return to full-time classroom teaching, telling Marcus with a tired but genuine smile that his knees simply weren't built for standing in front of a chalkboard 8 hours a day anymore. Instead, he accepted a newly created position as the district's official mentor-in-residence, working directly with struggling students exactly like Marcus had once been, this time with his full title, reputation, and dignity completely restored. At a small ceremony held in the very same school auditorium where Samuel had once quietly attended Marcus's foster care hearing decades earlier, the district unveiled a plaque outside the maintenance office Samuel had worked in for over 3 decades, formally renaming it the Samuel Reeves Mentorship Center. Marcus stood beside him that day, finally able to properly thank the one adult who never once gave up on him, even during the years that same adult was quietly being failed by everyone else around him. Samuel still keeps a small framed copy of that affidavit on his new office wall today, not out of bitterness, he says, but as a quiet reminder that the truth, however long it takes to properly surface, eventually finds its way home to the people patient enough to keep looking for it. What Marcus learned through the entire experience was something he now shares with every young attorney who joins his firm. Sometimes the person who believes in you when nobody else will is quietly carrying their own unfair burden in complete silence. And sometimes the greatest debt we can ever repay is simply refusing to let their sacrifice remain invisible forever. If this story moved you, subscribe to Digital Story Corner and hit the bell. A brand new story drops every single day.